ListenABLE, we are back in your ears. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing and being here. We're back with another guest, but also back with some really good news about our email as well. It's listenablepodcast@outlook.com.
That way, also, you can follow us on our social medias, listenable_podcast on Facebook and Instagram, but best contact is via the email. And I think there'll be a few emails wanting our guest today to especially come and do some speaking because she's been a really good friend of mine since I started playing sport pretty much in the Paralympic Games. And it's going to be a tough one for Angus because, he likes to think of himself as the king of Geelong, which is where he's from. And safe to say, I've definitely found someone way more famous than him from that area. And I'm really excited because I think it will, not only break down a lot of barriers, but she's got a pretty incredible story that's cool to share.
Well, let's hear it.
So I'm Kelly Cartwright, mum of two, and was competing in athletics and powerlifting.
Okay, and what is your disability?
I'm an above-knee amputee.
All right, now that's a humble introduction. Competing, did you come last? How did you go in athletics?
I did all right.
What'd you get?
In my second games in the London Games, I got gold and silver.
Okay.
So
That's okay.
to top off my last real big international competition was pretty exciting.
We'll get into your sport a little bit later on. But as I was saying in the opener, of the two of you, when you're on the way to Geelong, which is a part of Victoria and Melbourne, which one of you has a giant silo painted of themselves?
That's a bit of a soft spot, Mate. It's getting ripped down. So nobody probably anymore.
Yeah. Maybe by the time this is released, there won't be. But yes,
Exactly.
I do drive past your silo on the way to Melbourne, which I do very often to see my mum who's still in Torquay. And yes, knowing that you were coming on this podcast, I knew that Dylan would start a G-Town rivalry. And it's so funny when people are from Geelong. I'm not sure if it's based around most places, but it's always identifiable about who that person is by the school that they went to. If someone went to like Oberon High School, you're like, oh, you're a bit of a dero.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the question that somebody always asks you is what school did you go to? And I'm not very quick to
And
answer that.
on the way in, when you asked Angus what school he went to, what was your response?
That one?
You said no. You went, of course.
Oh, yeah.
What's it about Angus that says you went to that school?
How do you know that from the 15 seconds we've been introduced?
Look, I did my dead ball with all the guys from Joey's, so I know them pretty well.
And he looks like a Joey's boy.
You do.
Okay. That's St. Joseph's College, an all-boys Catholic school that I went to, yeah.
Very nice.
And came out the other side an atheist.
Hey, Kel, you're a above-knee amputee, so we'll get into what that means and how it happened and things like that. But we want to first and foremost, I guess, go back to what it was like for you growing up as a young girl, because you obviously didn't always have your disability.
No, so I grew up in a little town, sort of near Geelong, and everybody knew everybody. But I grew up in a family where sport was the centre of everything. My brothers loved football, I loved netball, and I just dreamt as a young girl playing sport internationally. I didn't know whether that would be in running or whether it would be in netball. So I think I had a really great childhood, jumping off the pier every summer, hanging out with our friends who lived next door, and I absolutely love my upbringing. So up until the age I was 15, I lived a pretty normal, active life.
Then 15 came and there was a diagnosis?
Yeah, I was probably 13 when I started to suffer from a pain in my knee, and the doctors just kept brushing it off to growing pains and playing netball, doing too much sport. So I did sort of sit on the sideline for 2 years and put it to the side until the pain became so severe that I couldn't even sit properly at school. And then a doctor sent me for a scan, and then he said, we found a cyst in your knee, it's fine, it'll go away by itself, or you can have 2 weeks off school and have minor surgery. And, I really wasn't in love with school, didn't
To say the least.
Yeah, you can put it that way. So I chose 2 weeks off school, and that's when they went in and did keyhole surgery and rang me 2 weeks later and told me that, unfortunately, it wasn't a cyst in my knee, it was a cancer.
So when you're telling them for 18 months you got leg pain and they're telling you stop being a sook basically, how pissed off are you and your family when you hear that news that you haven't been, pretending the whole time and you've actually got cancer in your leg?
Not one bit. People find that hard to believe. I think my mum and dad put it down to me complaining as well, so they probably feel a little bit bad as well, but it's so rare, my cancer. It is not known. Maybe 15 years later it is a little bit more talked about now, but I'm not angry in the slightest. He had no idea. He really didn't think it could be that. It's about 1 in 3 million people get this type of cancer, and leg cancer is quite rare, and all the signs were pointing towards sport injuries. So I'm really not angry at all. And in fact, he's still my mum and dad's GP down in Geelong.
Really?
Yeah. I know he would feel bad, but at the end of the day,
What's his name?
I won't mention.
Gonna give a shout out.
But yeah, no, I'm not angry at all.
If it's so rare, what's it called?
It's called synovial sarcoma. So
One more time, slowly.
synovial sarcoma. So it's a soft tissue cancer that sat right inside my kneecap. So it was so deep that I couldn't actually remove it. I had to take the whole leg off if I wanted to get rid of all the cancer.
So because there was such a long period of time between you feeling the pain versus having the cancer diagnosis, and it's great that you don't have any ill feelings towards a doctor, but from doing this podcast, chatting to people like Curtis McGrath, I've learned that there's such a huge difference in amputees when it comes to below knee and above knee, because the knee is such a pivotal joint for movement. Do you think, I mean, it's great that you've come to terms with your life now, and that's how you know it. But do you wish that you could go back and have that knee joint, because that is such an important part of movement?
Oh, look, I envy below knee amputees. I look at them sometimes walking up and down stairs and racing, and yeah, I'd love that little bit more of my leg. But I always say to people, I always get asked if I'm glad that I lost my leg because of where I've been and what I'm doing.
That's interesting.
And I'd get my leg back in a heartbeat. I'd give up everything that I've done.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, so.
I knew you were going to play in this area.
So I'm the opposite, right?
I know. I knew some people would be.
Like, I'm probably the far opposite of that, because if I wasn't in a wheelchair, would I be a gold medalist? Would I have Metch and Tell? Would I have all the great things going on in my life? Would I be working on radio with Angus? Probably not. Maybe not. Don't know. So I'm all about it, but you're not. So
I wouldn't be the person I am today at all. I wouldn't be open, accepting, understanding. I wouldn't have traveled the world. I wouldn't have met you, Dylan.
Highlight.
But financially, physically, the stress that it had on my family, the unknown of for 8 years, even now, if my cancer would ever come back, it's known to come back aggressively, and I'm very lucky that I was past that 15-year mark. But for me, I'd love to get up in the morning and put both my feet on the ground. I don't know, and I don't know if this is a way to say it, but whether because I was on both sides of the fence, I grew up 15 years of having my leg and then I lost it. I'm not upset. I don't ever dwell about it. I don't wish it back, but if I had my choice, I'd rather have two legs.
So Dylan always talks about being disability proud, and how, especially for his examples of, his life, his lived experiences, that, kids see him being proud in their wheelchair, and then maybe they can find some solace in that if they're going through that in their teens. But it's I don't read from this small interaction that you're not proud of your disability.
No,
It's
not
just
at
if your
all.
life could be different than you'd like it to be.
It's hard. I'm just trying to be as honest as I can be with
Hey,
how I feel,
We're
because
loving it. It's perfect. That's what we want.
because I do. Like, I'd love to have two legs and, grow up as a girl. Like, I know they're minor things, but I look sometimes going, damn, I wish I could just, go for a run and do this or do that. And you'd be lying if you said you don't. But my life is probably more amazing than it probably ever would be. And I do wear my leg proudly. One of my biggest things I love to do is share my story, to show young girls, to show people going through maybe not necessarily the same thing as me, but something quite hard, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. In saying that, I'm sort of stuck on two mindsets of, I would never be where I am today without losing my leg and the person I am, but I would love two legs. So
That's good.
yeah.
What was the feeling? I know you weren't always proud. I mean, it obviously affected you a lot when it first happened. What was that moment like when you woke up in hospital and you looked down and you had no leg? How did you
Especially
react?
formidable years, teen years.
Yeah.
A lot of people say to me, God, being 15 would have been such a hard time. And it was, but I don't know whether there would have been an easier time, a harder time. Because as soon as you're thrown into that, it just becomes your main problem. I mean, when you're 15, you worry about the way you look, what if boys are going to like you, if friends are going to hang out with you, but then all of a sudden, this is what you've got to deal with and overcome. And I sort of made the decision after about a week, I had to think about losing my leg or to try and save it. I did say initially that I'd rather die than have my leg amputated. And after speaking to my family and Googling the cancer, I realised that was silly. I'd rather be alive. But then, when I woke up the next day and looked down at the sheets and saw the reflection of the TV, it really set in. And that's when I told my dad to turn the TV around, and just sort of took me a day or two to really come to terms with it, that it had gone. I had two perfectly fine legs going into hospital. I didn't have There was nothing wrong with it. I was still walking, I was still running. So it was really hard to come to terms with the fact that they were taking away a perfectly good part of my body.
Oh, that's so interesting. So there were, even though you had pain in your knee, you still had the ability to
do everything.
run,
It was just, quite a. I really didn't notice the pain unless I was doing something, and I could do most things, and and especially after the first surgery, I thought it was all gone. So yeah,
I can see it still affects you on your face. Talking
really?
about it. Yeah.
I don't know. Like it does obviously, but I think.
But in a good way, you know what I mean?
No, it does.
It's part of the story.
Yeah, I think when I look back on what I went through, I just feel that it was so much harder for my parents. And that's what breaks me, and that's what really hurts me, is because I remember the drive from Geelong to Melbourne like it was yesterday, and I said to Mum, "I'll just turn the car around. I'm not ready. Let's go home. Let's go home." And she turned around to me and she said, "Kelly, we have to go. If I could take a spot in a heartbeat, I would." And that's sort of something that's settled with me now, especially being a mother. And that was kind of the moment where I went, shit, this isn't just me going through it. I've got to show them that. I think that's what helped me get through it, was I have to show them I'm going to be okay.
I thought that's kind of a common theme, is that people who have injury / cancers that we've spoken to the podcast, is they realise that they need to be a strength in that moment. Curtis was a great example. He said to his mates who had just watched him lose their legs, just tied tourniquet on his legs, he turned to them and tried to give them some hope in saying, "Don't worry, boys. I'll see you at I'll be at the Paralympics."
Yeah.
It's funny that you have to find that strength through your family and friends.
And the power of hope, you know what I mean? Especially on such a big occasion. And then you obviously lost your leg in rehab so you could walk around on a prosthetic. And were you self-conscious about how you looked, especially being a young female, growing into your body? Did you struggle with that?
Yeah, I think that was my main concern, especially going back to school on a prosthetic leg. I went back to school on crutches actually without my leg. And I remember going to my first class, and I don't know why. I thought these teachers would have like staff room meetings about who was sick or what was wrong. And my English teacher asked me when I was on crutches and what happened to me. And I thought I had to say in front of the whole class, actually over the holidays I had my leg cut off.
Wasn't there an email?
I know. I'm like, you've got all the kids who are diabetic or allergic to nuts, but there's Kelly who's lost her leg, and I think about 3 teachers asked me. So I found that really confronting in front of the whole class.
Can I also ask a question? How quickly you got back to school? Because Ben, previous episode, went blind overnight and was back to school within 2 weeks because he wanted to. He was in denial at that point.
Be normal.
Yeah.
How quick were you returning?
Well, actually, I lost my leg in November, so then it was school holidays. So I went back on the first day in January, at the end of January. So that was my goal.
Did you feel you were ready to face I was going to say music, but recess?
Look, I think I was in some ways not. I wanted to get back to my friends. I wanted to live somewhat of a normal life. But it was hard. For the next 2 years of school, I wore my brother's school pants on 40-degree days. Even though I knew that everyone knew I had one leg, I just didn't want to be the one that everyone stared at and or be different. And now looking back on it, I wish I could go and do it again, and I wouldn't have cared. But that's how I dealt with it at the time. Right. That's how I felt. Did
you say to the teacher, how about you open your eyes and see that I'm missing a leg? What did they think? You're kneeling in one side of your pants?
Well, I did have a long kilt on. Oh, I was trying to cover it up as much as possible.
It's not there.
You're not going to mini skirt on first
day.
No,
definitely not. So that was a bit awkward, yeah.
What about your dating life? Was that hard for you? Like, I know we've been friends for a long time. You've had some problems with some absolute dickheads who have said some really dumb stuff.
Yeah, I have. But when I lost my leg, actually, I had a boyfriend and we stayed together for 6 years. So we'd been together maybe 2. And he was young, I was young. And I remember couple of his friends said to me, "You're going to stay with her." Oh, yeah. And that just I went, oh my God, why would they ask that? And I guess it's something that just they felt they needed to ask, or it was on their mind. But we stayed together for about 4 years after that. And that was really good to have someone like him in my life. And then, went on to the single dating scene. And it's really funny because I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it being in other settings. But when you're sort of out at a bar or met someone on Tinder, I'm like, do I tell them I've got one leg before I meet them or while I'm there or afterwards? Because it's not that obvious if you're sitting at a table and someone walks up to you.
I'm wondering if, I think I was on Tinder maybe 6 years ago or something like that.
Did you match?
No, I don't think so. I would have swiped right.
That would have been the best.
No, but I wonder as a bloke rocking into a bar with you, whether I would like to know pre or post. Yeah. I think I would like to know pre and still come on the date to show you that there's nothing in there.
But you're a good bloke. So
yeah, okay, that might be the difference.
That's the difference. You're like, and I can attest that you are a good bloke and you'll be okay with it. But I mean, I know, Kelly, you might want to tell a story. about the guy you were dating for a while who wouldn't tell you, and then it just came out.
Yeah. Look, firstly, I think as well, like, I think we're in a world where we're so sensitive about everything,
Yeah.
and it does do my head in. But I can't speak for other people who are going through other issues. But for me, people have to understand that I'm around people with disabilities so much. So to me, it doesn't even cross my mind. If you've got somebody who's never met anybody with a disability, it's easy to say, well, they should know how to treat them. But it's hard. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you should
And-
listen to ListenABLE.
Yeah, exactly.
and
Listen
share
to
it
his
with you
podcast.
people you know.
So it is a hard situation. Rocking up to a bar with one leg, someone may never have met anybody like that, and it is a bit of a shock. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me or they shouldn't speak to me. But yeah, I dated a guy for probably about 6 months actually. I should have seen the signs at the very beginning, and I really liked him. I thought he really liked me, and he started to show signs of not really wanting to go out in public all the time with me, and didn't hold my hand down the street. And it didn't click for a long time until one day he sat me down and he said, look, I thought about asking you out, and I'm not breaking up with you, but I don't want to ask you to be my girlfriend because I still can't get over the fact you've got one leg. And I'm like, you've dated me for 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm at your house in your bed.
I couldn't believe it.
Couldn't have told me this 6 months
Yeah.
ago. And it all came down to the fact that he didn't want to be seen with somebody with one leg. He didn't want to be stared at.
And that's a product. I remember what happened. I wanted to go bash him. And
He asked me to wear pants.
he wanted to wear pants. So that was the thing. And I tell you what, and again, that guy's a dickhead, but also
Now, you had a
poor bloke.
prosthetic at this stage?
Yeah.
This is what I got, like,
Right.
Yeah.
But it comes down to which we talked about previously on ListenABLE, is it's a product of that person, but it's also a product of that person's friends who would be putting pressure and asking. And the example that I gave, which we've had some response on social media, is, for example, if Chantel said, I've got a new boyfriend, he's in a wheelchair, the first question is not what's his name, it's what happened.
Yeah.
It's not, and then we use that example, and everyone's like, oh, I would also ask what happened to you, Kelly, with one leg, rather than ask, oh, what does she do? You know what I mean? It's the biggest, I guess, descriptor of us when it probably shouldn't be. But hopefully talking about it makes people realize you can't string somebody along when
No,
you
you
it's just shocking.
And you've got to sort of look at it as a reflection of themselves, not you. It's their problem. It's their inner issues that they haven't dealt with. And again, I say we're so sensitive, but then there's also the other hand where you need to be open-minded. You need to be understand that things happen. It could happen to you tomorrow, next week, next year, and they're just people.
So we're going back to body confidence then. So, when you came back that first year at school, I'm sure you were finding it difficult. When did you start to, love yourself? And did that 6-month relationship take you back a bit?
No, it didn't actually. The relationship didn't. That was only about 7 years ago. So I was a bit older and mature. I think, honestly, the moment that things changed for me was with sport. I went down to the athletics track with my running leg and I was still wearing pants, but I couldn't change my legs over with pants on. So I started to have to wear shorts. And then I just became more confident. And then meeting people like myself or like Dylan, just that are everyday humans, being themselves, and that's when it really changed for me. And I stopped wearing a cover on my leg. I wear it out so you can see it. I very rarely wear pants. And I don't do it as a statement. I do it because that's just who I am. Yeah.
And I guess society around us is probably becoming a bit more comfortable with it as well. I know you've had problems with comments, like I'm allowed to say, I know you're humble, but you're a very good looking person. And I've been with you when people have come up and said things like, oh, what a shame about your leg. Can you tell those kind of comments you get?
Yeah, I've gotten along the lines of, wow, she's so pretty though, after someone tells her I've got one leg, or, I can't believe it's happened to you. And to me, that just blows my mind completely. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And again, it just narrows it down to that it's about physical appearance rather than the person. So yeah, I have gotten that a lot. I'm sure you get it too, Dylan.
Oh, thanks, Jill. I wasn't fishing for that, but I'll take it.
If there is something positive to come out of those comments, it really does help you weed out people quickly.
Oh, and that's what I said about dating as well. Like, I'm not an idiot. I know there's been guys that I've dated and his friends are like, would you still? And they tell me half his mates said nah, and then half of his mates said yes. And that's reality. I did a post the other week about, you're not always going to be someone's cup of tea. And regardless of disability, looks, colour, you're not going to be. And you can't search the world looking for everybody to approve of you. You have to accept yourself and realise that it's going to weed out the good ones and the bad ones. And you have to be comfortable with who you are, and somebody will love you or like you for who you are.
You've actually got a really great life and a beautiful, just why I said Instagram. Give the Instagram a shout out because you have a great page as well.
Sorry, was that the first post that didn't involve your children in 2 years?
I was just about to say, it's become, especially in isolation when I'm in track, with no makeup on every single day. They're just my kids. I will try and put better content.
At Kelly Cartwright.
Yeah.
Is that number?
There's no number.
Okay, at Kelly Cartwright. Make sure you check it out. You mentioned sport before, and you're humble talking about you're bloody good at it. So did you automatically go straight to running? And I guess it was a pretty quick progression for you, except for losing to that really old Mexican mother at the time.
I'll never live that down. I'll never live. Dylan is the only one that keeps bringing that up. I did lose in Beijing, yes.
You've been running for
No, I didn't get it. I got lost.
How long have you been running for?
Probably a year and a half.
So she hasn't been running long on a fake leg.
I scraped through as a wild card for those games.
However, the lady that won was literally
40.
40.
Okay, right.
Mexican
Apparently
mother.
they peak at 40 in Paralympic athletics.
Sure. Okay.
30 in
Well, you
most.
still got a couple more Olympics than you then.
Exactly. No, I couldn't go back to netball because of the running blade. I don't know if you're aware of those. They're a bit hard to run on.
Can you explain what a running blade is?
So it's
Oscar
a blade.
Pistorius.
Yeah, I was about to say
you
that.
Can say it.
Oscar Pistorius' blade. So it's like a J curve. It's got spikes in the bottom of it, so it makes it difficult to do things other than sprinting.
You can't be wing defence.
No, you can't. And you've got to have short nails on netball court. You're not going to have allowed to have spikes in the bottom of your.
Did you ever have dinner? Did you ever have dinner with Oscar Pistorius?
Oh, a couple of times in the village.
Yeah, what was he like?
He was nice.
It was.
Yeah, he a lot of people were always asking for photos, and he was always really generous with his time. So, yeah.
The Blade Runner.
Wasn't he talking about how much he did love guns with you though?
Yeah, there was one time we sat at the table in the village, and he was showing me some pictures of his gun collection. He was a farmer though, and out in the
yeah, it was for his property. I remember when
he needed semi-automatic war rifles for his property.
I'm telling you, when you told me that, I was like, "Cow, that could have been."
Take the
you.
stand.
I feel like I can't tell you anything, dude.
Yeah, that's all
obviously.
What else are you going to keep bringing up?
Thank God he didn't go to the bathroom during lunch. So going to the leg though itself, the prosthetic, can you take us through it? The U shape isn't enough for me. I didn't know that there was spikes underneath that, like running spikes.
Well, yeah. So
I didn't know that.
people make a joke that I only need one shoe, which is silly because I have two legs. But when you're wearing a prosthetic running leg, you actually only need one shoe for your real foot, and you cut the sole of the other shoe and glue it to the bottom of a running spike because you need the what do you call it? The thread to be able to.
So you stick the sole of it on the.
You glue it
blade.
on, yeah, and then put your spikes in.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but even if you didn't have that, it makes it quite difficult to run on asphalt. Unless you've got a special jogging leg or a leg specific, and I had a sprinting leg.
What's the cost of a running leg?
Look, they're a lot cheaper than my walking leg. They're around $10,000 to $20,000 for a running leg. Yeah,
you've got the big kahuna of walking legs, don't you?
Yeah, I finally got it. I've been waiting 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
How much is that bad boy?
It's about 90,000.
But that's custom to you.
Kurt would have.
Yeah,
the
Kurt's
better
got a 200 and something
He's
thousand.
got the waterproof one.
Yeah. Well, he's in a kayak.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got an amazing leg, and I'm very lucky that I've been waiting 2 years for this leg. So
I had some funny leg stories with Kel. She often wasn't the most organised person and forgets to charge them, and then they go straight.
I thought you were going to talk about the one where they drank out of my leg.
I got three. I got the one of the drinking at the party. Everyone was drinking out of her leg. And in London, Kel was riding a bike and I was hanging on the back and we were checking out the village. And as she was riding, her leg fell off. So I'm in a wheelchair, hanging onto her bike. Her leg falls off the bike, and I'm like out of my chair. Comedy of errors.
Well, you mean you should send a photo to Daniel Ricciardo, who's famous for a shoey. You should show him your leggy.
Well, I think it's kind of gross. I didn't drink out of it.
Man. It stinks.
No, it doesn't. I clean it.
The legs stink.
They don't, if you clean them.
Okay. Proper hygiene.
Debatable.
I don't know about your shoes, Dylan, but my leg doesn't stink like that.
Why running? You lost your leg. Why did you decide to go into a sport where you're at a complete disadvantage? I mean, why was it not an upper body sport? Why not discus?
Well, I'm not built for discus. That's
very
honest. Look, I just loved running. I've always loved cross country, and I didn't love sprinting so much. But again, being an above knee amputee, it is very difficult to run. So you don't really want to run as long as cross country. Yeah, no. And then I just loved it. I started going down to the track and meeting people and competing, and I'm always been a competitive person and qualified for my first games, which was Beijing. But when I first got my running leg, Geelong raised funds for me to get that.
Landy Field?
Yeah.
The old sprinting track.
I ran for Chilwell.
Do you guys want me to leave? Just so you have to
you just don't understand the reference to the G-Town, mate.
Okay. I don't think many people listening to it.
and then, but my aim was the London Games. So I thought I'd have about 5 years to really train and scrape through, met Dylan and went to Beijing.
So did well in Beijing, didn't win a medal.
Yes.
But 2010 World Championships, how did they go? That was in the lead up.
Yeah, I did quite well there. I got 2 gold medals, but I had a really bad lead up to those games. I actually had to have my leg re-amputated, which means go in, get about a centimetre cut off the bottom. Because being an above knee amputee and running, you put 3 times your body weight through my stump, my bone, and I damaged it so much that I just needed a clean slate. But as you know, Dylan, you got to do certain qualifiers, certain events to get to the big event. So I think it was 6 months, not even, before the World Championships.
Isn't that funny? I recently attempted a marathon, which is 42 kilometres. I got to 28 kilometres.
Why would you even do that?
Background. He realised that he'd wanted to get a bit fitter post-isolation.
Yeah.
And he said, this is on Friday, he thought of it. On Saturday, Kelly, on radio, he goes, guess what I'm doing tomorrow, Dill? I'm running a marathon.
No training. I could only run 4Ks.
And I was like, don't do it. I was worried about him. Anyway.
He got to a 27 and a bit.
No, hasn't run in years.
But that's not my point.
He was almost disabled. He was almost on this podcast for another reason. I'm telling you.
That wasn't my point to that. I wasn't looking for a humble brag. What I was going to say was I have been complaining to my girlfriend. I've done a couple of posts about my blisters on my foot.
Oh, God.
And that's what I'm saying. And here you are having to re-amputate some of your leg because of the wear and tear of sport.
And
what do I have to
because
complain
you
about?
want to get back to sport, which is probably stupid in hindsight. But yeah, to be honest, if I look back on those games, they weren't my best jumps that I've ever done or fastest race, but up till that time I was the fittest and strongest I'd ever been in those 5 months, and I had been in the 2.5 years.
Amazing.
Because you kind of look at a timeline and think, I don't have a lot of time. You put 110% effort into that, and it just led me up to the London Games really good.
So you got to London, you were the favourite. Your dream as a young person was to be a sportswoman. What was that feeling like when you finally got that gold medal in the long jump?
A dream come true. It sounds cliche, but it's worth the ups and the downs, and to see your family and your coach in the sideline that had put more effort into you being there than probably yourself, it meant the world to me. It meant that it was worth it, the sacrifices, the times that you don't get to go and do all the things with your friends that they're doing, but it was just, I put so much effort into winning that gold medal and to stand on that podium and hear the national anthem, because I remember 4 years before hearing some of them in the Beijing Games.
Thank you.
Some of them. And just knowing that's what I wanted and to know that I was there.
Chantel, Dylan's partner, in her episode mentioned that she knew that Dylan wanted to live a big life and decided to live a big life. You now live a big life. You're a gold medalist.
Not as big as Dylan's life.
Or you live a big life. What do you ever think back on what your life would be without the cancer, without the amputation?
Yeah, I don't. I get asked that a lot too.
Were you studying to be something?
No, I didn't like school. Right. I'm glad. I'm probably lucky that I lost my leg and got into sport, because I don't know where I'd be.
You'd be a different person.
I would totally be a different person.
You are so much softer, I imagine, and like accepting, I guess, now that you've had it, I reckon.
I think, though, I do have to thank my parents for a lot. I think it is to do with your upbringing as well, with how you are open to the world and accepting to people. But yeah, losing my leg changed everything. I really don't know where I'd be. I'd still love sport. Whether I'd be representing Australia, I don't know. I don't think so.
Mixed women's tennis, maybe on a Saturday.
Maybe
women's.
doing cross country in Geelong, Chilwell.
Hey.
Yeah, I really can't answer that question. I do not know where I would be, what I'd be doing, but I'm just sort of glad that.
Well, you don't have to look back with regret.
No, not at all. No.
Now, after London, life changed a bit. You got a lot of sponsors, did some underwear commercials, and your career took a big U-turn when you went on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
So, one, I'm your friend. I didn't know you could dance.
Neither did I.
Okay, you couldn't dance. Good.
I could.
So, when they called you, were you thinking, like, I've got one above knee? I think we have to really stress how hard it is to do anything when you have a really high up stump, which you do.
Yeah.
Why'd you say yes? How was it?
I didn't originally.
Okay, what happened?
So I'd found out I was about 10 weeks pregnant when they asked me to go on the show.
I didn't know you go.
That as well.
Yeah.
Morning sickness on top of everything.
Well, no, I didn't. I was actually very lucky, but I sort of was in this mind, Dylan, and I'm sure you saw me in those last couple of years where I was a bit lost.
You asked me to shave your head one day.
Yes, that happened.
At a party.
Half my head.
A bit lost.
Okay. Yes, we used to party a bit, but I sort of went to the London Games thinking, great, I'll have some time off. I'll be in the next Games 4 years later and the next one. London was my last international competition for athletics, and that was not in my future that I'd planned.
Why was that?
Because of my ankle. I have an ankle injury that will never get better, and I tried for about 2 years on and off, had surgery, had blood injections, had steroids.
The legal kind of.
Yeah, the legal. And it just never got better, and I started to hate the sport. I really started. I lost myself for a while. I really did. I'd been told what to eat, when to go to training, where to be, to all of a sudden felt like I had nothing or nobody, and I couldn't even admit to my mum and dad that I was potentially retiring. I never have retired yet, still, by the way, because I haven't been able to do that. Because I thought only people know me as Kelly the runner, Kelly the Paralympian, so I struggled a lot with that. And then I sort of just took a step back and travelled the world for just fun rather than athletics, which is a whole different ball game. And then met my wonderful partner, and yes, Ryan, my partner, on Tinder.
Oh, cool.
Did you tell him about the leg pre or post? When did you tell him about the leg?
Well, he knew who I was.
Oh, famous.
Yeah, I was famous in Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
I was the Paralympian famous one.
Cool.
But yeah, so then I, took a step back. I was still sort of dabbling in the gym and doing things, and then got asked to go on Dancing with the Stars. Like I said, I'd had a lot of great opportunities in those 2 years as well to get my face out there. And then, I said no to Dancing with the Stars because I was pregnant, and because if there was one thing that someone asked me if I could do was, I always said I can do everything except for professional dancing. So I said no, and then I thought, I sit at home and post about, talk about people stepping outside their comfort zone, showing the people what you're capable of, and I thought I have to do it. And said yes, and then my poor partner drew the short straw with a pregnant one-legged kid.
Wow. Did you
imagine that? Sorry, imagine that email. Oh, have I got this year? I got a pregnant one-legged lady.
It was really hard.
Did you ever use the line when on TV? Did you ever say, well, dancing, people who can't dance say that they've got 2 left feet. Well, I literally only have 1.
No.
Good opportunity.
I thought you were going to say legless there.
Yeah, no.
Good opportunity.
Can you do the 2-step? You're like, well, technically not.
No. So, yeah, it was hard. It was Monday to Friday training, obviously, every day, and it was just a process of elimination of what we could and couldn't do.
And you got good. Like, I'm not saying that.
I haven't brought myself to watch all the dances.
It's pretty hard.
I
was
haven't watched
impressed.
it back.
Yeah, I'm impressed with myself because I really didn't think I could do it. And I'd never wore high heels, and that was my dream to wear high heels as a girl. And so I got a high heel foot and had to learn how to dance on a high heel foot as well as
everything else.
So,
but you didn't have, or did you have your current leg, the whiz bang top of the line leg?
Yeah,
okay,
I was very lucky. Long story short,
could you have done it without it?
Probably if that was what I was used to.
Poorly, very poorly.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be great at it. But yeah.
First round loss, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because just for people who obviously can't, haven't seen you walk in real life, I just walked with you to the studio. There's no limp for you. It's it was something I noticed because we've interviewed people who have been amputees, and there's an obvious limp or a push to the hip.
And it's not all to do with the prosthetic. You can give somebody any prosthetic and they may not be able to walk as well.
Yeah.
I put it down to that I'm a very determined person. I wanted to learn how to walk quite well, but also I'm quite strong and fit in the rest of my body. I've noticed that when I gave up sport for a couple of years, my walking went to shit because my body wasn't strong, my core wasn't strong, and people have different walking gaits as well. So I'm very lucky, and then on top of it, I've got a very amazing leg now. I've been on someone's borrowed leg for 2.5 years, so I know how tough it was for that. So I've only got this new one in the last month, so it's very, very helpful.
You touched on it before, but you were pregnant during Dancing with the Stars. How did you go with the pregnancy being, on one leg? Because when you take your leg off, you hop around, if you need to go to the fridge or on the couch or whatever. I'm sure that's not easy pregnant.
It's definitely not. We had to be quite cautious of certain moves that we did on the dance floor. But my second pregnancy was a little bit harder. I actually can't complain. I had such an easy pregnancy, and I think coming out the other side of having my first child, doing dancing helped me so much. I came back quite fit, quite strong, because I danced till I was 25 weeks pregnant. And then, continued on going to the gym, whereas second time round, I sort of just sat on the couch straight away and never got up. So it's two different.
What are the 2 kids' names?
Max is my 4-year-old, the boy, and Charlie is my 8-month-old.
Beautiful.
So your relationship with your partner who you met on Tinder, so he knew that you had, one leg or were an amputee, so that helped in those early stages, I guess.
Yeah.
When did you know that he was the one?
Ooh, good question. We moved pretty quickly. I think look, I don't know. I think he's a little bit older than me. He's a little bit wiser. I was sort of lost in my party ways, or stuck between what am I going to do. And to meet him, he helped me ground myself. And he's an amazing, supportive person. I'd never had anyone treat me the way he did. And yeah, he's incredible. He's a firefighter. He's fit. He was, doing all the things. He's
fit. He's hot.
He won't take that now. He's got a bit of a dad
kids
bod.
are coming because they are.
Well, cute kids already. Good-looking adults.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't know if you say kids are good looking. You know what? I'm sure.
Yeah.
And what about your two beautiful children? What do they mean to you to be a mum?
Oh, look, it's tough. It's hard being a mum, I'll be honest. But it's the best thing in the world, and probably everybody says that. And someone asked me to compare it to Paralympics and training to being a mum. And training stops. At the end of the day, you go home, you put your foot up, relax. Parenting never stops. It's tough. It's hard. It tests you in ways. And I'm, on my second child now, my last one. My last. But my first one, I struggled. I struggled being the one that was sort of traveling the world, doing my sport, being a selfish athlete, to being the one that stayed home and looked after the baby. And it took a long time for me to wrap my head around that. And then I realised that I went to Commonwealth Games in 2018. I competed again in another sport, which I probably should quickly touch on.
I was going to say, after the firstborn, you went to powerlifting in Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I found myself in the gym a lot, and then I've always loved lifting heavyweight. I always tried to outlift Dylan in the gym.
Not hard. You smashed me.
Not hard at all.
You're a freak in the gym.
I do beat Dylan on the leg press.
I was going to say, we both do.
I was about to say, I probably could, but yeah, I definitely could.
Takes a while for that joke to stick.
I see you as a full-bodied person, Dylan. But yeah, I think, and then I sort of started to realise that I could still do what I wanted and be a mum, and I think that's what helped ground me. With athletics and with training, you sort of become so involved in just your sport, your sporting people, your life. I didn't really have a balance, and then having my first child, I found myself in the gym and loving powerlifting and aimed for Commonwealth Games that was in Australia.
With your child, though, first child, there would have been some teething difficulties. I'm sure by the second you had it down packed. But as soon as kids start crawling, they're there 1 second, they're not the next.
Yeah.
When you take your leg off when you come in the front door, was it difficult, especially when your partner wasn't around, to have that mobility to raise kids?
Well, I think that's what I struggled with, because I couldn't take my leg off like I usually would. Right. So I had a lot of blisters, a lot of problems that I couldn't rest. You cannot rest till the kids go to bed, really. So that part I did. With Max, I'm hoping Charlie's a little bit different. He's full on. I had a leash on him for a couple of years.
Right.
When I went to the shopping centre, because I can't chase him and it scares me. And I think that was one thing I really struggled with, is I was out the shops a couple of times and he ran off on me. Oh. And I thought, and then everyone was trying to help me and I just felt so shit. I'm like, great, now everyone has to help me when I know that I can do it, but I can't. I couldn't. I can't chase him across the road as quick as somebody else could. And it made me feel really crap.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I worry about that too, Kel.
Yeah.
Like if my little kid goes up on the playground, I can't get him.
No, and I'm not good at that either.
Down.
Well, I can't get him.
They'll tell you when they want to go home.
Yeah, well, Dad, we're staying here, you dickhead. Fine. I'm at the mercy of my 3-year-old.
I've never thought about that. That is so. There must be some really scary situations that you both. I mean, obviously you have children, Dylan, in the future, will that crossing the street, he lets go of your hand. I
think, and I had some looks when I put him on a leash, and I thought, well, this is better than him getting squished by a car or taken by somebody. But the scariest thing for me at the moment, and I don't know if you saw it, Dylan, was I broke my kid's finger and ripped his fingernail off in my prosthetic leg about a year ago.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And my little one now, Charlie, is starting to climb up on my prosthetic, and it just makes me feel sick. It was horrific. I got his finger caught in my knee.
So your leg was on?
Yeah. I was brushing his teeth, so he had his fingers just resting on both of my knees. And I was actually trialing different legs at the time when I was waiting for my leg, and his little finger went in. I didn't realise, and I stood up completely, the knee completely closed. His finger got caught in. I ripped it out. Literally didn't even know he could do that. Ripped his fingernail out from the roots, and broke his finger, and he had surgery. And my partner wasn't home, so obviously being a fiery, he deals with that. I freaked out, ran next door in my undies, knocking on the door, going, "There's blood everywhere." And I'm trying to stay calm for him. He had surgery. It's all good. He likes telling everybody that Mum broke his finger in my leg, and he doesn't even fear my leg now. It's sort of, I thought he would be a bit scared.
Of course.
But yeah, having my new little one, she sort of climbs up on my leg. I don't even know if she's standing behind me with her fingers in my knee joint, and I just get so freaked out now.
Now I'm worried about running over my kids' ankles.
What about getting your fingers in the spokes?
Stop it, Kelly. I never thought of that. I thought about all the other stuff now.
Well, that's life.
Have to put some rim covers on.
Yeah.
They're beautiful kids. You should be very proud.
Yeah, thank you.
obviously the coronavirus has had a massive effect on everybody's life, especially, my life going to the Paralympic Games, which was scheduled for 2020 in September. But now, Angus, coincidentally, it's scheduled for 2021 September.
Which would give somebody another 12 months
If you
to
had had a
train.
baby 8 months ago, you'll be like
Couldn't do it this year.
but 2.5 years post.
2021.
Yeah.
Give us the scoop.
You said you haven't retired.
I haven't retired.
Powerlifting,
Powerlifting
running,
at
what
the
are you
Games?
thinking? Running?
Look, I love powerlifting, and I have to be realistic with powerlifting. The girls in my weight class are just lifting so much.
Can I just give an example? You're in the under 48 kilo.
Mm,
I'm not kidding. They bench like 130, isn't it?
120, 130.
What?
I'm not kidding.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
So
it is.
I'm 90 kilos and 6'3". I couldn't do
It
that.
is amazing.
Yeah,
And
it's incredible, and they have different. They don't have different categories in powerlifting, so we're all just in weight
right.
categories, not disability categories.
and people of short stature have a lot shorter arms,
Yeah,
so they only have to go like,
Oh,
they kill it,
and they dominate.
of course.
Like I've got huge 6'4" arms. I'm saying that's why I'm bad at bench, but it's harder.
right.
Yeah, and it's all done on weight, body, and body weight and things like that. But look, I love it. I'll still do powerlifting. Whether it's, I love to get the Australian record in my weight class. But I never say never to running, and I never say I'm going to definitely come back because then I'll put too much pressure on myself.
Where is the running leg in the house?
I've got it. I was actually at my prosthetist yesterday and got it fixed up, and ran on it yesterday.
At Daily Mail, at Geelong Advertiser.
yeah, right.
No, I just want to run. Like this virus.
You sound like Forrest Gump. I just want to run.
Not far.
Run.
50 meters. That's about as far as I want to go. But I just want to do it with my kids at the Oval because that's all we can do at the moment is go to the Oval with the dog, with the kids. So it'd be nice to be able to run with
And they'll
them.
love seeing Mum flying around. That'd be cool.
I don't think they believe me yet
No,
that I Google myself nearly every day on YouTube because he watches YouTube and put a race up and he's like, can I have people opening toys now? And I'm like, okay.
Mum, look at Mum flying the long jump. I don't care.
Yeah, just put something else.
You've got a really dedicated following on your socials, Kelly Cartwright, everybody. So a lot of the comments, from what I've seen, seem to be mothers, especially
Yeah.
around your kids' stuff. Do you find that people treat you or comment differently on your parenting because of your leg, if that makes sense? Do people find it more inspirational, as they like to say?
Look, probably. I think I've had a few messages going. I find motherhood hard enough. I can't imagine doing it with one leg. But it's all I know, and I think it is what it is. And everybody has weaknesses or differences that they've got to fight through every day, weekly. So for me, it is what it is, and I don't see myself as inspiring. There's many women all over the world having babies in incredible circumstances.
Would you say the word is adaptability? Because, I mean, look at isolation that we've gone through for the last 6-7 weeks. And, people who work so hard now have to add homeschooling on top of that. But somehow everyone seems to get 3 meals on the table.
Yeah.
We seem to adapt. And I think a lot of people think
you know what you're capable of until you put in that
Exactly right.
situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you agree, Dylan, but inspiring does get thrown around too easily. And
heaps.
that's one thing I used to get when I even left the house. Wow, it's so inspiring seeing you out in the house, out of the house. And I think that's not inspiring. But I don't know how you feel about it,
Inspiring,
but
so
it's a bit of a kick in the
It's
face
inspiring that
sometimes.
we're gold medalists, not that we can drive,
Get out of the
drive
house.
a car.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen you drive, pretty average as well. Bowl of uncomfortable?
Yeah. A bowl of uncomfortable is where somebody sends us a message based on knowing that you're an upcoming guest. It's probably a question they wouldn't have the bravery to ask you
God.
in person. Unfortunately, it makes us a little bit uncomfortable because we are relaying that question to you, but in the hope that a podcast that makes people feel uncomfortable, therefore we can get some sort of comfortability in it.
One each?
One each.
All right. This one's from someone on Facebook. Right. Now, there is a concept which is pretty heavy online called devotees.
Mm-hmm.
It is creepy people that are devoted to amputees. And you can make some serious money in the devotee world, especially someone looking like you. Have you ever cashed in on anything to do with devotees or even thought about it?
Never. Actually, that's a lie. I know I've never done it. No, I've never seriously thought about it, but it is an ongoing joke between my friends and I.
Okay. I've just got my hands in the air. I just want everyone to note that my hands are in the air. Continue with your answer.
Okay. I'm scared.
No. It'll make sense why my hands are in the air.
No, I have not thought about it, and I have a lot of DMs, as
What
I'm sure you are.
Give us a few.
Oh, can I look at your stump? Do you touch your stump? Can you send a photo of me, of a video of you putting cream on your stump?
That's so whack.
Does I have some amputee friends. Do they use their stump for certain things?
Oh,
A couple of arm amputees that I know, things like that.
arms going in places.
Yeah, so it's full on, and I get it a lot, and I block most of them.
How much? What's the biggest cash offer you've had?
I haven't had any cash offers.
As if, why not?
No.
We've had a previous guest, Cherie, got offered $1,000.
Well, now I'm feeling shit.
Can I run?
I've got to
can
give
I
you my
manage?
question first.
What?
I got to give you the question. Now, the reason I put my hands up in the air, which people on YouTube and maybe our socials can see, is that this question was pre-written. Dylan and I both didn't know I were uncomfortable. But this was from Ellen Achuka. Is there a price to see your stuff?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I didn't write that down after Dylan's question. It's been there since the start. It came on Facebook. They want to be anonymous. L is fine from Achuka.
I feel like I've blocked you, Elle, on my...
I think I know you, El.
What if someone
I know you.
Yeah.
What if someone goes, I want you to rub whipped cream on your stump for 10 grand?
I'd have to run it by Ryan first because, it's...
10 grand though?
No.
So there's not a price.
100 grand?
100
Okay.
grand.
There you go.
Alright.
L gets 6
Al,
figures.
100 grand in my bank account and I'll send you a stump pic.
There you go.
Okay?
Isn't that weird? That's. I mean, we had some really lovely questions, and some of them I've relayed through my own of people who are wanting to know genuine questions about your career. But that was the bowl of uncomfortable that came through, and I read it, and I was like,
It's
I
real. It's out there.
I
It's,
can click
Oh,
on
it's
your
real,
profile.
man.
Like I looked at their profile, and I was like,
yeah.
what?
And usually you find with those profiles, they have pictures of stumps, constant stumps all over their profile.
Oh.
Yeah.
I once had someone message me on Skype. I don't know how they got my Skype handle. And they said, oh, I just want to sit on top of you with your big, strong arms and your brittle, small legs. And they were like, and just trying to send bulk
Some
nudes.
people out there.
Oh, there
Bulk
are.
nudes.
Mm.
It's
I mean, you've got
crazy.
to understand as well, there is a fetish, but imagine the good-looking guys and girls of Instagram as well, the DMs that they would get would be just as full on and gross.
Oh, just like, yeah.
There'd be people, it doesn't matter about, your stump is obviously a fetish, but there'd be people who wanting to rub cream on any sort of body part on
Toes.
Instagram.
I don't get
Toes.
enough. I don't get enough
I don't
creepy
get-
people.
I don't
And now you're
either.
upset that
Because
you're
you
not
got
getting
kids.
cat.
Because you got kids. I used to get a few creepy people, and then
Yeah.
obviously I'm pretty public with my
Yeah.
partner Chantel, so they just stop,
Mm.
which is good. But like, I want a
Have
few
you
creepy
ever had
ones.
that? And I think you've had it before. Like we're talking about when there's one extreme where someone doesn't like that you've got one leg,
Oh,
and someone who wants to look
This-
after you.
yeah.
I've had a couple of guys not knowing that that's what it's about, but they have this sort of sense of,
care.
oh, do I need to? I'll carry you up the stairs, or I'm like, no, I can walk, thanks. Like that kind of.
Well, it's like, there's feeders. Do you know, there's
Yeah, they're not-
always next to these huge women in America sitting on the couch. There's
Exactly.
this skinny guy who's
It's not
feeding
necessarily
her.
a fetish. It's like a.
Yeah, it's like a caring sort
Yeah.
of.
I don't think I've told you this story. I was at a college in the University of Illinois, and there was this girl who was kind of vibing me, and I like kissed her on the dance floor. My mate's like, "Mate, do not do that with her." I was like, "Oh, why not?" And then on her butt cheek, she had a tattoo of a giant disabled wheelchair symbol, like the parking symbol,
Oh.
with a love heart instead of the wheel. And she'd go
Oh.
around sleeping with the wheelchair basketball team.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Didn't do it.
Wow.
Honestly, didn't do it. But I was
Still
like,
kissed it.
oh my, I still kissed it. But I was like, oh my god, that's a real thing. That was that was my
Yeah.
only like.
Oh, that was your first
Oh yeah, when she was
introduction
like
to people
just
who.
obsessed with it. Yeah, and like wanted to do it in the wheelchair and stuff.
Mm.
Anyway.
Last question. Probably should have put this before the ball of uncomfortable. How are you raising your kids with education around disability? Because one of the comments we get from able-bodied parents are that thank you so much for giving me a resource that I can now pass on to my kids. Prue was an episode in particular with autism where she explained it so well that people are now taking that and teaching their kids. You might come across someone in a supermarket who's having a panic attack. This could be it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. How are you raising your kids being in the disabled community? Is there more education around it?
Look, I think it's sort of unsaid with my own kids because they're growing up with somebody with one leg. Their
Yeah.
mum has one leg. They've met lots of my friends with different disabilities. But I'm very open for them when they want to ask me questions, whether they see something different in the supermarket. I encourage them to ask me questions, to maybe ask them questions.
Mhm.
And just be open and understanding of everyone. I actually say it a lot to them that not everybody looks the same, and that's okay. And I really want them to understand that there's so many different people in this world. I'd love, and I've sort of dabbled in it, writing a child's book about being open and as someone with a disability going to school, because I believe I didn't have to go through primary school with one leg. And speaking to some of my friends, they found that one of the toughest times because kids are cruel sometimes and they don't
course.
get things. So I'd love to be able to do that and go into schools, because I have had a couple of requests of, can you please come and speak to this class because someone's just lost their leg, and before they come back, answer the awkward questions. And I'd love doing that because it is tough for kids. So I think it starts with children, acceptance, understanding, and Because you've got grown people that aren't accepting and understanding, but
Mm.
nobody was there when they were kids to explain to them that this is life and this
Exactly.
is what it is.
Final question. If you could give one bit of advice to other a young female who's struggling with their body image, one leg or not, or someone with a disability or anybody really, what would that be?
Oh, just be yourself and try so hard to accept you for you, because I get so worried about people when they're older, wasting their life on worrying about things they can't change. Because I can't change my leg. My leg's never growing back. Someone can't change the way that they look and who they are. I just want people to try and accept themselves for who they are and surround yourself with people that are the same, that support you for who you are, that put you in the right direction. You don't want to be hanging around with people that bring you down. You don't want to hang around with people that make you feel bad about yourself. So filter that out and just focus on things that you can change. Write them down. Write down a note on a piece of paper, the things that you can and can't change, and throw the ones out that you can't, because there's no point wasting your life on that. You don't want to look back on those times.
Great advice. And I'm going to regret this because I like having sponsors and speaking gigs. But if anybody wants to get in touch with you to use you, because I've seen you speak and you're brilliant as you were today, how do people do that?
Just my website, Instagram, Facebook, but www.kellycartwright.com.
www.
www.kellycartwright.com.au.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
See you in Tokyo 2021.
No pressure.
Scoop.